So, hey guys, I have no idea how this is going to look or sound. It is now 10 past 3 in the morning, and I just finished about a 10-hour stint of Dead Rising 3. And that's because I got on my Xbox One last week on Saturday, and I played Killer Instinct for most of that weekend, and then I hadn't got a chance. I wanted to wait. I played a little bit of Dead Rising 3, but I really wanted to wait until the weekend and I could get like a massive, big chunk of it out of the way. I ended up just not being able to put down the game, and I got through the entire game. So in this video, I'm going to give you my impressions after my first playthrough of the game. I'm going to avoid all spoilers, and this isn't going to be a review. I've nowhere near played all of the game. I'm just going to let you know kind of the changes that have been made, what you can expect if you buy the game, and then what I thought about some of the news and some of the things that people might think going into it. So first of all, frame rate. We're just going to talk about this very quickly. Like I said, from what I'd played of the game before, even though it's been seen that they can go down to at least about 16 frames per second, it's really not noticeable. I don't notice the frames. It plays pretty smoothly, plays pretty consistently. Frames don't affect the gameplay. There was, however, one or two jarring frame drops. So, what are you gonna do? But yeah, that's to the game's error, and it really kind of spoils the atmosphere, because other than that, it's pretty technically astounding as to what they've done. Like, literally, it's a fantastic game technically, apart from the frames. There is also pop-in. You'll notice that the way the game world is set out, there's basically lots of highways between smaller areas, and this is kind of the same thing that they would do in things like, I don't know if you remember, but when Tony Hawk American Wasteland came out, there would be lots of smaller areas with long corridors between each area, and they sold this game as being the first Tony Hawk's game with no loading screens between levels. And there was a loading screen, it's just that you were travelling while it was happening, and this is what happens in Dead Rising. There'll be some roadblocks which forces you to kind of do like a kind of an S-turn through like some trucks or something on the highway, and so you can't get through kind of the same way that you would normally. Sorry, I can't see because I've taken my glasses off. Let me see. I was wearing glasses before, but I didn't want the glare to show up on the camera, so I can hardly see what I'm looking at right now. Can't see where the camera is. But yeah, as I was saying, so like what will happen is sometimes, like if you're in quite a fast car, quite a maneuverable car, there's some really maneuverable bikes in the game. If you can get through the thing fast enough, and you can drive fast enough through the zombies, because another thing they do is that you can't just drive straight through zombies. You can increase the pushing power, but zombies in large crowds will always slow down a car quite significantly. But if you can actually drive through fast enough and get to an area, the textures will be quite low quality, and then the high def textures will pop in. And that was kind of annoying. It only happened a couple of times, but it wasn't rare like the frame drops were. The frame drops were really, really rare, and there wasn't really anything kind of that caused the frame drops, so to speak. Like literally, you would just be playing and you'd get that frame drop. Like, yeah, I can't even remember the exact cause. There probably is, but it was so rare that I didn't really notice it anyway. But the thing about the pop-in was that it was fairly easy for me to kind of recreate as like, oh yeah, I'm going to get some pop-in because I've just gone through there really fast, and what do you know, I get pop-in. So like it should have been, it's something that should have been addressed. Maybe put some more kind of barriers between the areas to make me go a little bit slower. I don't know what else they could have done. I'm no game designer, but like it should have been tackled, because when you've got a game that's already running at quite low frame rate, I shouldn't really be seeing any pop in either. Like it's getting a bit ridiculous now. You're only rendering at like 25 to 30 frames per second most of the time. You should be able to load up all the textures with the amount of RAM that you've got, you should be able to load up all the textures by the time that I get to that area. You know, whether it's through game design or optimizing your game. But other than that, we're past the technical stuff now. I want to talk about the gameplay and kind of how it differs from the past. So if you don't know, I'm a really big fan of Dead Rising. I remember a Reddit article. It said, what things about the previous generation of gaming do you think need to continue to be in the gaming industry? And the first thing I put down was the Dead Rising formula. And the reason why I love the Dead Rising formula, I was looking forward to Dead Rising since it was announcement, because I was like, a mall full of zombies and you can just find weapons and kill zombies with them. Like, this is awesome. This sounds amazing. Obviously, like, it was kind of a letdown, but it was so charming. It had a certain charm to it, and the charm was the Dead Rising formula and the fact that they basically, Capcom made a game and they showed it to you and said, there is lots of stuff that can happen in this game. There's no guide, there's no big arrow telling you where to go or how to do everything or anything. What you do is up to you, so you can go and you can do whatever you want. And this led to people finding out all sorts of things. So, for example, in Dead Rising 1, you could ignore the story altogether and just go out and kill about 26,000 zombies. And if you kill 26,000 zombies, you unlock the Mega Blaster from Mega Man. And it's actually like I think it was a 999 shot gun that was one shot kill, and it was amazing, and like it made the game so easy. But you wouldn't know to do that, and not everyone would know to do that unless unless you knew how to. It's actually an achievement. The achievement, I think, is zombie genocide or something like that, and it's basically you have to kill the population of Willamette, and then suddenly more zombies come after that. So it's kind of like a joke, like ha ha ha, you couldn't possibly kill this many people if this was real, but it's just an inside joke that you would know if you knew the population of Willamette, which you find out. But like it was that kind of thing, and then if you ran out of time on a mission and you failed it, that was fine. You just carried on playing, and if you ran out of time on a certain story mission, or you died or something, you could choose to reload from a checkpoint, or you could restart the story. And the cool thing was that you kept all your kind of your level ups, and you just carried on playing from that from the beginning of the game, but with your current character. And that was a really cool idea for me, because I thought this is a game that's designed for multiple playthroughs in the most literal sense possible. The only way to ever possibly do everything and know everything is to play through the game once, see what happens, play through the game a second time and see what happens, try different stuff, see where the curiosity takes you, and then eventually you'll be able to get that perfect playthrough. And what made this even more interesting was how strict the timings were. Like you had to eventually, if you ever wanted to get a completionist playthrough, you had to get your route down through the game to a T. Now, not everyone wants to do this, not everyone likes doing this, but it was just very interesting. It was a very interesting formula, and it was very polarizing as well. A lot of people didn't like Dead Rising 1. I, for one, did like Dead Rising 1. And then we went on to Dead Rising 2, and we saw a lot more of the same. But whereas we had a very serious story in Dead Rising 1, Dead Rising 2 kind of embraced the hilarity that came out of a lot of Dead Rising 1's kind of on the side little extras. Like in Dead Rising 1, you had a lot of kind of psychopaths that were kind of like a little bit crazy, a little bit weird. Like no one will ever forget Adam the Clown. Like no matter how long you live, no one will ever forget Adam the Clown. One of the most gruesome psychopath deaths ever. Like seriously, he still makes me like touch my belly. Just be like, oh no. Like if you haven't seen it, just YouTube Adam the Clown Dead Rising death. It's gruesome. But yeah, like so some of that was past, and it made the main story for Dead Rising 2. And so Dead Rising 2 was kind of a lot more kind of funny. It made more jokes. Like you had the black enemy like main villain dude, and he was like a typical stereotypical gangster. He's like he held his gun like that, and he shot like that, perfect accuracy, no recoil. It's just like you had those the kind of sleazy co-hosts of the show, and they were making sexual innuendos all over the place, and like it was a lot more fun for a playthrough. Like you had Stacey Chang as well. Stacey Chang was a great addition because she was making all these sexual innuendos with Chuck Green, and that was really good. And then we came back into Dead Rising 3, and in Dead Rising 3 what they decided to do was, in Dead Rising 2 they kind of kept the same formula of the gameplay as well, and they kept kind of the strict time limits. You just literally got given a world and told to go right ahead. I didn't think you got as much variety in Dead Rising 2 as you got in Dead Rising 1. There was a lack of kind of vehicles from the bat. Like you had to unlock all the vehicles, whereas in Dead Rising 1, like as long as you could get to the car park, then you could get a vehicle straight away. But yeah, in Dead Rising 2 you had to unlock the vehicles, although it wasn't that hard to unlock them. I think you unlock the bike pretty quickly. But in Dead Rising 3, what they decided to do, and I imagine this is partially because Microsoft published it, and I think another reason is because it was a launch title. And what they decided to do is they decided to split the game into 2 modes. So as I said before, you get quite in the old games, you got quite a strict time limit, and you wouldn't get a perfect run unless you'd absolutely practiced the game and knew the game like the back of your hand. In Dead Rising 3, what they've done is they've split the game into 2 modes. There's story mode and there's nightmare mode. Nightmare mode is what you're looking for if you're a fan of the old Dead Rising games and you want the Dead Rising experience. Much stricter time limit. You barely have enough time to do anything. You literally just go out and you get a certain amount of time to just play through the game. In story mode, they basically change it so there is no time limit on the story missions of the game. So there's a time limit on all the side missions that you get, but all the story missions there's no time limit. So what you find is that you can just do every single side mission, then do the next story mission, then do every single next side mission, and then do the next story mission, and just keep going through that kind of formula. And then on top of that, there's a lot of exploration to do in Dead Rising 3, a lot more than there is in, say, Dead Rising 2 or Dead Rising 1. And that's partially because in Dead Rising 1 and 2 they were based in malls. Basically, Dead Rising 2 was in a holiday complex, but it's basically another mall. And what was interesting about that was that you got given a map, and that showed kind of everywhere where everything was. I need a chainsaw, so let's find the hardware shop on the map. Hardware shop's here, so we're gonna go over there, get our chainsaw, and we're gonna combine it and make the paddle saw. Say we're playing Dead Rising 2. In Dead Rising 3, you get a map, but you don't get told where anything is. Like you'll be told, kind of names of places, like in hints and things like that, and then you'll be told, and then you'll have the map and you'll have the layout of the area, and you'll be told like what area is each. So the South Veni Peridos, Central Plaza, Ingleton, and I can't remember what the top right. The Sunset Hills, I think, and South Veridos. I think I can't remember exactly. They're pretty stupid names, but yeah. But you don't get told where anything is. So like for example, there's like a quest. There's a side mission where you get told, "Oh, find a chainsaw," and you just sit there like, where? And this is when I first noticed it. The fact that they didn't tell you. It was like if I was playing Dead Rising 2, then I would just like, oh, hardware store. Let's go straight there. But in this, I was literally walking around for like at least half an hour looking for places. And I eventually found a hardware shop, and luckily they found a chainsaw in it, and I brought it back and it was fine. But yeah, it really showed itself, and I think partially it's because of the way that the system with the crafting works now in it, especially. So the way the crafting works is that there's blueprints all around, and you find blueprints. You find blueprints, and with the blueprint is usually the weapons the ingredient weapons needed for the blueprint. And so you get the blueprint, you pick it up, you pick up the 2 weapons or the 3 weapons or whatever, and you make your combination weapon, and then you get to try it out and mess around with it and stuff like that. And then what they added into it was a locker. And what this locker does is that it's at home bases, which are placed all over the city. There's either 1 or 2 in every section of the city, so that's about between 6 and 8 in total. And what these allow you to do is basically any weapon that you've crafted or found already, you can just take out the locker. It doesn't matter, you don't need to have found it or anything. If you go to one of these home bases, you can take out a weapon. The catch is that you can't take out like every single weapon or whatever. The locker has to resupply. So I know for garages, and the same as with garages as well. If you make combo vehicles, you can get them out at garages. I know with garages, you can only get out 1 vehicle, and then you have to wait for it to resupply. I think I've managed to take out 3 weapons out of a locker. I can't remember. I've never tried to take out more than that, because I didn't want to make myself overpowered. I thought it was a bit cheap, to be honest. But I just wanted to play the game how it was obviously meant to be played. So I thought, okay, I'm going past this home base. I keep going at home base, and I think of the shop. We have a hardware shop in the UK called Home Base. So calling it when I went past this home base feels like I've gone off to buy like a 2x4 and an axe or something like that, whatever. But yeah, I'm tired. I've completely lost my train of thought. But yeah, I think it's roughly about 3 or more, and so I think that's the main reason why kind of the way that they want you to explore, because they want you to find all these different blueprints. They don't want you to not go somewhere unless you have to go there. So they just want you to look around everywhere. And there's shit on them. There's shit tons on the map. Like, oh my god. Like, the way I played my first playthrough was I didn't go out of my way to search for things. And I think this came to my disadvantage at the end of it. Because in story mode, what they tend to do is they give you so much time to do everything that they give you too much time, basically. Because what I was doing was I was doing side missions, and then I would do the story mission, and I would do all the side missions that came up next, and then I would do the next story mission, and then do the next side missions, and do the next story mission. And what I found was, because I'm actually quite good at the game, because it was an easier game than the previous games, and I'm good at Dead Rising already, I found that I was getting through fairly easily, making sure all my survivors have weapons, and making sure they keep them up to health and give them first aid and things like that. I was finding that I was going through the story fairly quickly. Like, I wasn't even trying to, and I ended up finishing most of the story missions by day 3. And there are situations where you have to wait around, like, to kill time while just something happens or whatever, or a plot point or something like that occurs. But like, it doesn't seem to be that often. I think it happened like two or three times. But yeah, and so I ended up finishing the game very early in the amount of allotted time that I had, and that caused me to miss about 3 side missions. There's 24 survivors in the game, and I managed to get 21, and that was all of the survivors that you could have possibly gotten up to that point. So I either missed survivors, which I really don't think I did. I got the S rank ending, or I should have just killed time. But the problem is that you don't know when you're not going to be able to. You don't know when you're not going to be able to go out and kill and finish, because there's always a certain point in Dead Rising games where, or in any free roam story game, where it's got a conclusion where at some point you have to stop free roaming and you have to finish the game. But obviously, with this being my first playthrough, I didn't know when that point was. The good thing is, as I've said, Dead Rising is about multiple playthroughs, so I'm sure on my next playthrough I'll know exactly when that point is, and I'll be able to say, nope, not finishing yet. next bit. Yeah, it's the next. Waiting for the next side mission, whatever. So it's not a big complaint, but it's still a little bit odd. The pacing I thought was a little bit off. I'm going to be really interested to try the nightmare mode. I wanted to try the story mode just because I wanted to kind of relax and have fun for the first couple of playthroughs. Whether I'll actually try nightmare mode, I don't know, because I never found that much. I never found that much excitement in kind of trying to get that ultimate playthrough. So, I don't know, it's going to be kind of a bit iffy. As for the player and general gameplay, first of all, there's a lot more zombies. There's a lot more zombies, and this is one of the reasons why I think that it's a technically astounding game, is that you can knock its frame rate and it's popping for all you want, but the fact that it renders so many zombies at once, and they all look really quite different. There's no real, apart from the kind of the special zombies. There's certain special infected, you get zombies that used to be football players and they charge you to the ground, and you get you get zombies that used to be army, and you get zombies that used to be policemen, and they're just holding guns in their hand and just shooting randomly. Apart from that, you don't really notice much repetition, and so that was really impressive just for a start. Another thing that you'll find is that a lot of veteran Dead Rising players will know that a really old trick, because when you used to play Dead Rising, the idea was, while killing zombies is fun, it's a waste of time. That's how it was in the original Dead Rising. It's a complete waste of time to sit around and kill zombies. Unless you've got a survivor following you, then there was no reason to kill any zombies at all. It was just you got weapons for psychopaths, and that was it. But in this, so in the old Dead Rising, what you do is you would abuse the jump, and what the jump would do is it offered you kind of invincibility frames. Basically, it made it a lot harder for zombies to kind of go ugh, and then they would stagger you, and so it made it a lot harder for that to occur. And it also the animation kind of pushed the zombies out of the way as well. But what you'll find in Dead Rising 3 is that that's a lot harder to do. If you get crowded by zombies, you're going to take a lot of damage. You either have to get out your weapon and start swinging, or you're going to lose from a half to a third of your health. At full health, a completely upgraded health, you're gonna take about a half to a third of your health to 2/3 of your entire health bar. You can't just jump out of it. Your move speed, your jump height, your jump distance is completely affected. It's a lot. The zombies are a lot more kind of dangerous than they were in previous games. The typical zombies, anyway. Another massive difference that I just said, life was upgraded. In the previous Dead Rising games, when you got level ups, you would just get a preset level up. So you would get an inventory +1, or a life +1, or a new move, or a new power up, or just some random thing that was to do with your stat. New throw distance. Throw distance was a big one. I loved having high throw distance. That was good fun. But in this, you get to choose, basically, and there were some really cool things. I thought a lot of the upgrades were kind of really well thought of. They were more imaginative than what I thought they would be at first. I thought they would just be, you just get to choose whether you want more throw distance or more life or whatever. But no, it's completely different, and some of them are directly to do with life and inventory. The inventory ones are literally just inventory +1, inventory +1, inventory +1, inventory +1, the whole way through. You start off with 4 item slots, you can finish with 8. But all the others are completely different. So the life bar offers +2 life bars, plus another life bar, and partial health regeneration. Food does more. or the next upgrade might be food is more effective at healing you, and then the next one is survivors are more survivable, they can take more damage, and that basically that kind of thing. And it was kind of cool because it made me pick and choose more about what was more important to me. So like I got to a certain point in life and I was like, okay, I don't need any more than that right now. Let's start putting points into inventory, and then points into melee, and then points into all sorts. And then you had other kind of categories. So there was life, inventory, and then there was mechanic, melee, ranged, smart, and sport. Sport affected kind of like sprint distance, your sprint maneuverability, like things like that. Like I didn't mess with it much. Smarts was kind of the same thing. Smarts was kind of just like niche skills you may or may not use, so I didn't really tend to go for a lot of those. Mechanic I used a lot because it was it affected kind of your combo weapons, so combo weapons lasted longer, you could make combo weapons a bit faster. So that was another thing, is that you make combo weapons on the fly now. And while that can be a godsend, it can also kind of be annoying because there was no longer kind of like, you couldn't make a weapon safely anymore. Like you couldn't just go into a room, shut the doors, and make the weapon. If you sit down and make the weapon, then zombies suddenly crowd you, then you're gonna kind of get hit a bunch. You're gonna lose some health, but you don't stop the build. That's the thing. The build just keeps going. And that was good. That was really good. But overall, I thought the leveling system was awesome. The best addition to the leveling system, I thought, was something that I hadn't mentioned, and there's another category. It's called combos, and what this allows you to do is there's combos, and there's lots of different categories, but it only costs 1 attribute point. You get a certain number of attribute points per level, and then certain mechanic, the next upgrade might cost 3 attribute points, and the next upgrade might cost 4 attribute points, and it just generally got bigger and bigger, the cost. But also you got more attribute points per level up as you carried on. But there was also a section called the combos, and combos only cost 1 attribute point, and basically what it allowed you to do is when you had a combo blueprint, you would have a specific thing, and it would have to be a specific thing. So for example, the Grim Reaper was specifically a katana and a scythe. It had to be those two, it couldn't be anything else. But what you can get is that you could get the pole arms upgrade, and what the pole arms upgrade would do is it would allow you to create weapons, combo weapons, using a more generalized kind of ingredient set. So instead of using a scythe, you could use any pole arm to make a Grim Reaper. It wouldn't have to be a scythe. It could be it could even be a spear, or it could be a hat post, a hat rack type thing. And that was really cool because it meant that if you use a weapon a lot, so for example, my two favorite weapons in the game were the flaming sword, which was a combination of motor oil and a broadsword, and the flame reaper, which was a Grim Reaper, so a scythe and a katana, and then was it a propane tank? No, gasoline. Yeah, gasoline canister on top of that. And then there was one other, I'm pretty sure. Can't remember. Oh yeah, heavy metal. Heavy metal was a really good one. It always lasted forever. I think that heavy metal was supposed to be maybe the spiked baseball bat of the game. Because there was always stuff to make heavy metal with. So yeah, if you had those weapons and you made a lot, you might choose to buy those attribute upgrades, and so it's easier for you to make them. Usually, obviously there might be situations where you can't make them, then you're a bit boned, but that's the nature of the game. Kind of you make attributes and you choose to get attributes, and then you might not need that attribute, but you just chose to get it anyway. I'm struggling to think of what else to say now. I did record, and I understand this is a face cam. I very rarely do face cams. I did record some of it. The problem was that I was sat downstairs in the lounge on my big TV, so obviously I can't directly record. So what I was using the game DVR on the Xbox One. So what I would do is I would say if I found something that I just really wanted to kind of make sure it's recorded, I would just say Xbox record that, and that would finish, and that would record the last 30 seconds. And if there's a section coming up that I just wanted to record, see what happened in it, then I would snap on game DVR and I would record the 5 minutes of playtime. And what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to upload those to SkyDrive at some point. They're probably going to take forever, so I've not done it tonight yet. I'm going to upload those to SkyDrive, and then I'm going to pull them onto my computer, edit them together, and just throw them up on my YouTube channel. There's probably going to be some spoilers in it, but I'll probably put those towards the end. So if you don't want to see any spoilers, like, just watch kind of the beginning parts, and then I don't know, just do what you want. Like, look at your own risk, I guess. They're not massive spoilers, but no, in fact, no, they are pretty big spoilers, honestly. Like, I'm not going to downplay it. Like, it would ruin the game, really. It would ruin the story of the game, really, if you watch them. Watch at your own risk. I don't really have that much more to say, but it was a fantastic game. I think the biggest surprise for me was how much of not a cash-in it was. And that's something that I was very kind of afraid of. I thought they were going to casualize the shit out of the game, totally disrespect the previous games in the series, and kind of just aim to make it appeal to the widest market possible. But that's not what happened. They made a game with a really good story that was relevant to the previous stories in the games, that kind of expanded on some of the mysteries that we still didn't understand from the previous games. And kind of it kept true to kind of the style of the game, and how it's always government conspiracy and all that shit. And it was really good. I was so pleasantly surprised. Honestly, at this point, I've played FIFA 14 on PlayStation 4 and Playroom. I've played Killer Instinct and Dead Rising 3 and Forza 5 on Xbox One. I've also played Titanfall on PC, although that's also coming to Xbox One. A demo at least anyway. And probably at the moment, I would honestly say that if you were going to pick a next-gen console, I would go for an Xbox One, just because the games Dead Rising 3, Killer Instinct, and Titanfall, even though Titanfall's not out yet, it's got a strong lineup now and coming up soon next year. So, well, PS4, it's got a pretty good lineup at the moment. I mean, Killzone is kind of a general shooter, but you've also got Infamous Second Son coming up, and then Uncharted 4, whatever that's going to be called. So, but I'm personally not interested that much in either of those series. I'm waiting for kind of the big kind of. I'm waiting for Infamous. Like, I love Infamous because I love Sucker Punch. I don't love them as much as Sly Cooper, but you know, Sucker Punch do good games at least anyway. And then I'm waiting for like all the new titles, all the indie titles that come out. I'm really looking forward to Octodad, even though that's also coming out on PC. But I'm probably gonna get that on console. I don't know why. But yeah, but honestly, my pick at the moment would be Xbox One. Yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say really. Desperately trying to think of something else to say about Dead Rising 3. Oh yeah, the map, it's kind of weird how big the map is. So as I told you, it kind of went for a Tony Hawk's American Wasteland style map, where they put really big long corridors between each of the areas. I mean, they're not particularly bland long corridors, not at all. Like, they're still part of the map in every sense of the word. in every sense of the phrase, rather. Like there's cars on there that you can use to travel on. You tend to get survivors that need rescuing on the bridges. At one point, there's a blockade that happens on one of the bridges, and it makes it a lot more difficult to get across. So as much a part of the game as each of the individual areas, but you still realise that they're there to serve the purpose of unloading the previous area and then loading the next area. It's very clear that that's what they're there for. But as for actual map size, they're each much bigger than Dead Rising 1 and 2. I mean, Dead Rising 1 and 2, to be fair, I mean, Dead Rising 1 was bigger than Dead Rising 2. Dead Rising 2 had more to do in the map. There's kind of more detail to it, that kind of thing. And the gameplay was a lot better, the zombies were a lot better, but the load times were insane. Oh yeah, I do still have more to say on Dead Rising 3. I completely forgot. But yeah, I mean, the map size, I'd say, was probably... I'm going to go for around double the size of Dead Rising 1, if not a bit more. But around that size. It's not much bigger, to be honest. I mean, in this case, I'm including kind of the big open area in the middle, and then all the areas around the side, and then considering the fact that there's the big underground area as well in Dead Rising 1, and then there's the there's kind of the extra area for the overtime mode. Considering all that, then I would say it's probably around double the size, as like double the surface area of map. The difference being that I think Dead Rising 3 doesn't really have as much in it as, like, in terms of like shops and kind of interactable areas as like Dead Rising 2, Dead Rising 1 was. I guess that was as much a design aspect as it was kind of just a limitation. But I don't know where to go from that, really. Like I don't know. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're playing. But it's a well designed map. I mean, there's nothing that looks out of place. Like, it would look really weird if it was like absolutely crawling with loads of different shops. I mean, like, you get like really typical what you expect to find. Like, I think there's like two different strip clubs, and then there's a triple X shop, like a bunch of vibrators in there, things like that. And then you get like a gun shop and hardware shop, and then like a mini mart, and then like a yoga complex, and just like random shit all around. But it's well designed in such a way where nothing kind of looks out of place, but it also looks really good in kind of like a zombie apocalypse type way. But other than that, the last thing I wanted to comment on, and this was a massive problem. This is something that I think was one of the biggest concerns for me, and also one of the biggest things that I want to comment on, and this was the boss fights. So Dead Rising 1 and Dead Rising 2 are both pretty infamous for having quite difficult boss fights called psychopaths. And what I found personally was that Dead Rising 1, Dead Rising 2, you kind of had to know that they were coming up, so you could prepare for them. And once you prepared for them, then they were pretty easy. Hence, the multiple playthroughs idea comes into it. Like, you don't know what's going to happen until it happens, but then once you do know what it happens, you can prepare for it next time, should you choose to either load the last checkpoint or restart the story altogether, and then level your character up a bit more, things like that. They got a little bit easier in Dead Rising 2, of course, but everyone knows that. But in Dead Rising 3, they got really quite easy. The bosses in Dead Rising 3 are very easy. I probably died... How many times have I died? I died once to zombies, and that was because I was escorting a particularly annoying survivor. That's not a dig on the survivor AI. The survivor AI in Dead Rising 3 is really particularly good, especially when you actually care for them and like give them weapons and feed them as things like that. Like, if you give a survivor a weapon, 9 times out of 10, like, they will be able to fend for themselves. Like, it's only sometimes where their pathing may glitch out like a tiny little bit. It's not like the awfulness that was Dead Rising 2, but things like when you get into vehicles and you want them to get into vehicles with you, or when you go traveling across particularly uneven terrain, they kind of spaz out a little bit, but it's nowhere near as bad as the previous games. What was he even saying? Talk about, oh yeah, how many times I died. Yeah, so I only died once to zombies, and that was because I was concentrating on making sure my survivor got through, because she was having a little bit of trouble. But kind of how they weren't difficult. Like, I remember in Dead Rising 1, Dead Rising 2, like I would die multiple times to psychopaths. But in Dead Rising 3, it seems to be quite forgiving. Like, there's lots of healing items around, so you can heal up from bosses, and like it was very easy. And that was mainly for the side mission psychopaths. However, there was a really stark contrast, because some of the story psychopaths, some of the story-centric psychopaths, were so difficult. Like, they were contrastingly difficult compared to the other psychopaths in the game. Like, and a lot of them seem to have some kind of really unfairness about them. I'm not gonna say which boss fights there are in relation to the time or place or anything, because whatever. But like, I just don't want to spoil the game for anyone else. But just two of the boss fights, and you probably know which ones I'm talking about, because they're part of the main story, and both of them kind of have things in the boss fights which seem really difficult to avoid. Like, seriously difficult. I mean, in one you actually have like kind of almost a time limit, even though you're not really given a proper time limit. Like, you kind of get a time limit. Like, that's how you avoid it. And the annoying thing about that is because it takes a lot of trial and error to beat those kind of bosses. Like, the cool thing is that you load the last checkpoint and you get to start the boss fight over, and you tend to get full health back. And again, massive difference to Dead Rising 2. In this case, that's how it's a lot kind of easier than the previous games. But one thing that's really annoying is that they would like first of all, the loading screens are obscene. Like, I know it's a massive map, but a 45-second loading screen, like, oh my god, every time I die, like, literally, I actually want to literally kill myself. And then what they do after that is they'll load like the cutscene before the boss fight, and there might be 2 cutscenes before the boss fight, and there might even be loading in between those cutscenes, and it's like, F off, game. Like, seriously. Like, it wouldn't take that difficult programming to say, okay, if the checkpoint starts at a cutscene and ends at gameplay, and the player dies in the gameplay, when you reload the checkpoint, skip the cutscenes. That's not a difficult thing to code. It's a very simple flag. Like, it's not that hard. It just frustrates me, that kind of thing. Because you try over and over again, and it's just like you get angry at the game, even though, like, you know it's your own fault. Like I know a lot of people that kind of get angry at the game, like, just because the game annoys you and it teases you. And this was one of those examples. It's just like the game is like, oh, I'm going to show you this cutscene 50,000 times because you keep getting it wrong. It's like, I know I'm doing it wrong, but I'm blaming the game and I'm telling the game to fuck off. and that's just really annoying, and game designers should avoid doing that. Punishing the player in a bad way is not how you get people to enjoy your game. Like, punish the player for doing something wrong, but don't make it infuriating. Make it understandable and make it deserved. Don't make it undeserved. So, massive loading screens, fucking annoying cutscenes that play over and over again. It's not the sort of thing that we want to see. And that's it. That's all I have to talk from the game. If you have any other questions, I'll be very glad to answer them. There is co-op in the game. You can kind of choose what style of player you are. So if you're a completionist, you can set that and say, I want to complete everything before I focus on the main story, and you'll get people who also want to kind of do that. Or you might be a speedrunner, and so you say you're someone who just wants to get through the main story as quickly as possible, and so you'll get people who join you who also want to just get through the main story as quickly as possible. And you also just choose single player only, and single player only just means I don't want anyone to join me. And that was kind of cool. It was a really interesting thing. I found a lot of time. I selected completionist, but once I started playing, I realized that I didn't really want anyone joining my game. I just I liked doing my own thing. When I got my first partner in, he didn't really talk to me. He was just running around doing whatever, and so I ended up just quitting the game and coming back to it later. Because I didn't know how to boot him. The game never explained how to boot him. And the next guy that came in, I just kind of said over the voice chat, because I'm a connect on, dude, can you please leave? I don't know how to boot you, but if you can just leave, I'm sorry. And that's kind of annoying for the dude, because there's a 45-second loading time for the game. So I don't want to have to wait for him to get in to the game before I can say, right, I don't want him in the game, get him out again. Because what I found out was you actually can boot someone and basically just press start and then press Y, and that boots them from the game. But it's kind of annoying that you can't just set whether you want someone to be able to join to yes or no on the fly, because not only does that make it easier for me, because I don't have to worry about people joining my game, but then I don't have to be kind of annoyed because I originally set my game to be able to be joinable, but then I kick someone after they'd waited 45 minutes to connect to my game and load in. So, it's kind of I don't know. But yeah, okay, so that really is everything. If you have any more questions, please post them in the comments below. I'm more than happy to answer them. Probably going to be playing the game a bit more tomorrow, but not so much. I'm probably going to try and focus on actually playing on my PS4, because I got it on Friday and I've barely touched it. I've only played FIFA 14 and Playroom. So, thank you for watching, and see you later. Bye.